You'll never belong here.
You're just a failure.
The rain didn't wash away the shame. It only made the cardboard box in Elara's arms heavier. Across the marble foyer, Beatrice stood like a porcelain gargoyle, her designer heels clicking a rhythmic death march. "Put the keys on the vanity, Elara. You're staining the rug," Beatrice said, her voice a polished blade. Elara's fingers trembled, clutching the damp edges of her only possessions. "Julian isn't even cold yet, Beatrice. This was our home for 7 years. This was my son's house. A house funded by a legacy you've spent nearly a decade leeching off of." Beatrice stepped closer, the scent of expensive lilies suffocating the air. "The locks are already changed. The accounts are frozen. You are a footnote that has finally been erased." "I gave up my career for him," Elara whispered, the first spark of resistance flickering in her chest. "I stayed when the scandals broke. I protected his name." Beatrice laughed, a dry, hollow sound. "You protected a shadow. Now, get out before I call security to escort the help to the curb." Elara looked at the grand staircase where she had once descended as a bride. The power imbalance was a physical weight, crushing her lungs. She turned toward the door, her silhouette small against the cavernous hall. "You think you've taken everything?" Elara said, her hand on the cold brass knob. "I know I have," Beatrice retorted. Elara paused, her gaze hardening. "There's one thing you forgot to check in the safe, Beatrice. One name you never dared to speak." The courtroom was a vacuum of redirected air and hushed whispers. Beatrice sat behind the mahogany defense table, her spine a rigid line of arrogance. Her lawyer, a man with a smile like a shark, shuffled papers with practiced indifference. "The plaintiff claims a right to the estate," the lawyer began, his voice echoing, "but the prenuptial agreement is ironclad. Elara Vance entered this marriage with nothing, and per the late Julian's directives, she leaves with exactly that." Elara sat alone at the petitioner's table. No high-priced firm, entourage, just a thin black folder resting before her. She felt the eyes of the city's elite boring into her back, the same people who had toasted her at Gallus and now treated her like a virus. "Mrs. Vance," the judge said, looking down over his spectacles, "do you have any evidence to support your claim of a secondary trust?" Beatrice leaned forward, a smirk dancing on her lips. "She's grasping at ghosts, Your Honor. My son kept no secrets from me. Is that right?" Elara stood, her voice steady for the first time in months. "Then you won't mind if we discuss the Serafina Project holdings?" Beatrice's smirk vanished. Her face drained of color, turning a sickly, translucent gray. "That is a private family matter," Beatrice hissed, her hand gripping the table. "It's a criminal matter," Elara countered, opening her folder. "And it isn't Julian's name on the deed of the holding company. It's a name you thought was dead." The courtroom hummed with a sudden electric tension. Beatrice's lawyer scrambled to his feet, his composure fracturing. "Your Honor, this is an ambush. These documents are irrelevant to the probate of Julian's will." "On the contrary," Elara said, her voice cutting through the panic. "The estate is built on a lie. Beatrice, you told me Julian inherited everything from his father. You told me I was a beggar at the gates of a dynasty. But you never mentioned the silent partner who owns 51% of the parent corporation?" Beatrice lunged toward the railing, her eyes wild. "Shut her up. She has no standing to speak that name. It was buried for a reason." "Sit down, Mrs. Vance," the judge thundered, gavel slamming. "The plaintiff will proceed." Elara pulled a birth certificate from the folder. The paper yellowed, but the seal unmistakable. "For 30 years, Beatrice, you laundered money through a trust fund established for a daughter you claimed died at birth. You used her shadow to hide assets from the IRS and Julian's creditors. You thought the Serafina Project was just a vault for your greed." Beatrice began to tremble, her hands shaking so violently she had to hide them beneath the table. "Julian didn't know. He couldn't have known. He didn't. Elara agreed, her eyes locking onto her mother-in-law's. But I did, Kay. And I found the woman you erased. A door at the back of the room creaked open, and the bailiff froze. The woman who entered wore a tailored suit of midnight blue. She didn't look like a ghost, she looked like a reckoning. The courtroom fell into a silence so profound it felt like the air had been sucked from the room. Beatrice collapsed back into her chair, her mouth working but producing no sound. "My name is Serafina," the woman said, her voice a low, resonant echo of Elara's own strength. "And I am the legal owner of every brick, every share, and every debt this woman claims to manage." Elara stepped aside, yielding the floor. The power shift was complete. The victim had become the architect of her own liberation. Beatrice Serafina continued, walking toward the defense table with lethal grace. "You stole my identity to build a fortress of fraud. You discarded Elara because she knew the truth you couldn't bury. But resilience isn't found in a bank account. It's found in the people you think you can break." The judge stared at the new evidence, the fraud unfolding in real time. Beatrice's lawyer didn't even try to object. He simply closed his briefcase. Elara walked to the exit, stopping only when she reached Beatrice's side. She leaned down, whispering so only the broken matriarch could hear. "You didn't just lose the house, Beatrice. You lost the lie." As Elara stepped out into the sunlight, the weight was gone. Justice wasn't a gift. It was a harvest. Cruelty is a loud, temporary empire, but self-respect is a permanent throne.